Good morning, good day, good afternoon, depending where you are right at this moment, and welcome to our webinar based on, we're going to talk about product-based shopping experience on eBay, specifically how this is a listing change for the evolving marketplace. This is our agenda for the day. We're going to talk about the shopping past and present. We're going to compare what it used to be like shopping on eBay and what it's moving towards. We'll discuss in better detail the eBay catalog, what it is and what it's meant to do. We'll talk about compressed listings. If you're a shopper on eBay, you may have already seen these. We'll walk through the new experience step by step in a demo, and then we'll talk about what's coming this year on eBay for the product-based shopping experience and what we can expect beyond in 2019 and into the future. And after we're finished with our presentation, we will address questions. And there's a place on the webinar for you to type your questions in. We have our question screeners that are going through and picking out the relevant ones, and then they'll send them to us, and we can answer all those questions at the end of the webinar. By the way, my name is Griff. I'm in the seller engagement team, and I've been with eBay for 22 years. I like to talk about that. And joining me today is Matt Sainte-Marie. He's also a product manager, and he's the product-based shopping experience expert with us for today. Thank you, Matt.
You're welcome. I'm glad to be here.
So let's just start right off. Matt, talk about how we used to buy and sell on eBay in the old days.
Yes, well, as you can see, if you're following the presentation right now, this is what our homepage used to look like.
I remember it.
So yeah, many of us do. It was a great piece of real estate. Up until now, we should say, eBay is a listing-based marketplace, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so everything you can buy, you can list on eBay is in a listing. So every time a seller comes to the platform, we start with a blank page, and we have to describe in our own words what we're selling. The only structured part of the listing process is the category that we pick to put the listing in. But essentially, it's kind of a classified ad where everything is free form, and the title to the description to the attributes that we put on the listing are chosen by the seller. And the result of that is that there's multiple ways to find the same product based on the keywords that we use to search. If we're browsing the site per category, we don't really, as a buyer, we don't really have much control over what we see on the results page when we search for items.
And this is the old eBay.
This is the old eBay.
Yeah.
So if we change to the next slide, what we're proposing to do today is to adapt to the changing ways in which buyers shop online. So to kind of paint a broader picture, when eBay started 23 years ago now almost, the landscape was much different. There was a lot less offerings, there was a lot less e-commerce, and as we were talking about before we started this, a lot less listings on the platform.
Yeah.
So the old ways made sense at the time, right? But in today's world where there's multiple avenues to shop online, and the game has stepped up quite significantly, and buyers are becoming more and more savvy in how they shop online. So because of the landscape and the highly competitive world of marketplaces that are online, the efficiency that we need to put in front of the buyer is highly increased. So this is why we're doing this, is to help buyers basically zero in into what they want to buy much quicker, and we'll see in the next few slides how we're going to do this.
Going back to that early version of eBay, I remember that at the time of that homepage, there were maybe 1 to 5 million items on the site. We thought that was a lot. Roughly how many items are on eBay today?
We're bordering up and down from 1 billion items at any given time.
Yeah, so that's a lot of listings.
Yeah.
A lot to browse.
Yes.
It'd take about a year to go through them.
It could take a
right?
while, yeah.
Exactly. So we've talked a lot about this in the last few years since the Structured Data Project began, and I think there's still some confusion about what we call the eBay catalog. What is it, and what is it meant to do?
Sure. Let's start by saying what it is not.
Yeah, let's talk about what it isn't.
Just to clear off the misconception, there is no physical eBay catalog like the Sears catalog that we would see in the old days. What the eBay catalog is roughly a database of all the products that are sold on eBay. So that's the end goal that we're wanting. Today, not everything that is sold on eBay is in the catalog, but essentially that's what we aim to do in the long term. So view the eBay catalog as the source of truth in terms of descriptions of items and the specs and those kind of stuff, like from anything you want to buy from, you know, a computer to a camera or any type of equipment, to, like, in the future we would want to describe in the catalog anything that's sold on eBay.
Yeah, that would be a great goal.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
But so what it isn't is it's not something I can browse.
Not really, no. It's more a way that we can internally know what's for sale on eBay, right, as eBay. Because today we don't know, all we know is what words people are using to describe what they sell.
Okay, so let's talk about how, if I'm a seller, how my listings will be presented to a buyer in this new shopping experience.
Sure. So let's draw a parallel from yesterday to today again. So as you see on the slide there, if you search, to take the example of Samsung 4K TV, for example, if you type that in search today, based on the keywords that you put on, the site will try to catch all the listings that match that search query, and it can yield many thousands of returns, like in terms of listings. But among those listings are only a smaller amount of actual products that are offered. So you might have multiple listings for the same TV, for example. And as a buyer, you have to sift through this to find your best deal, and it's mixed along with other things that would match those keywords. So you might find accessories for the Samsung 4K TV, or you might find even non-Samsung TVs that people have used the word Samsung in the title to try to catch you. We call that keyword spamming. In the new world, we will compress those search results in product cards. So instead of returning listings, the search results page will give you products. And as a buyer, it's much easier for you to tell eBay what product you want to buy first before you get to the actual offers for those products. Yeah. So that's what you see on the right side here, is a product results page rather than a search results page, where you would have single products, and under each of those products are the listings that are offering that product.
So in this slide, just to be clear, in the old way, without a grouped listing for the product-based experience, if I was to type in Samsung 4K TV, there are many variations of that particular type of television, right? So it's a flat screen. It could be new. It could be refurbished. It could be used. Plus, there's different models in that. And all I know as a buyer is I'm looking for a Samsung 4K TV. I now have 18,000 listings to go through. That's a chore.
Yes, and many of them won't be exactly what you're looking for.
Right.
And it might not even be easy to figure out which ones are for what you're looking for and which ones you are. And that's where buyers need to kind of get used to searching on eBay, as opposed to other marketplaces where they just, you know, everybody tries to put the right product in front of the buyer first and foremost. So that's what we're going after.
So then on the right-hand side, what we're seeing is that all of those 18,000 plus listings have been grouped into their particular product. So it might be a Samsung 4K TV with different sizes. It could be, you know, different size screen. It could be a different model number. We know this from the product identifiers, and now a buyer just has 129 listings to go through and say, oh, well, this is exactly the product I'm looking for. And when they find it and they click on it, then they see the available listings.
The listings, yeah.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So let's talk about the product-based shopping experience starting today, which is, you know, we have when I'm shopping on eBay or when I sell, I notice there's a lot of opportunity to use the catalog, but we're kind of focused in on very specific product lines that we're making a requirement for, and we announced them in the seller update. Can you talk about that?
Sure. So as a first step towards a fully product-based shopping experience on eBay, we had to pick the easier, more, the right way to say this would be the product lines that are better defined by the manufacturer. So iPhones, for example, is the thing that we put as the most compressible in search, right? Because it's easy to know, it's out there, the information is widely available as to what are the iPhone models that existed, what are the different variations, different permutations of those, like either color, size, you know, memory capacity, or models, etc., and even carrier that they're locked to. That information is readily available. Same thing with Nest thermostats, for example. We know the product range, we know the models, and we were able to go ahead into the eBay catalog, which is the database as we just talked about, and make those product lines perfect in the catalog so that it would be ready to adopt by the sellers. And on the buyer experience side of this, it's easier for us to serve a very tight, if I may express myself that way, compressed search experience.
Sure, yeah, no, that makes sense. And so we have Nest thermostats, and then I see some HDMI cables, which rings a bell with me because a couple weeks ago I was looking for specific HDMI cables, and it was a chore.
Yeah.
It took me some time to find exactly what I was looking for.
So when you get into something like HDMI cables or accessories for tech, you're going to get some stuff that's branded where you can get some sense of what the offerings are and the models and all that stuff, but then you're also going to get a bunch of generic stuff, which may or may not have similar specs and all that stuff. So this is kind of in the middle of our spectrum here, where eBay will be able to do some work, or there will already be some data that is structured in the catalog for that. But there's going to be a bunch of other things that are kind of like still floating around, not really sure where they go. So there'll be work done to kind of incorporate that into the catalog and and be able to serve that in group listings. And these are the things. The more you move to the right on this slide, we call it in the future, right? If you go to the extreme right, you have the unique single items like the Mickey Mantle, rookie card there.
In the art pottery vest, which there may be that's art pottery. It's there's potential that it could be some examples of that are similar. So there's an opportunity here. But when we get into the rare and unique items, this is in the future, and that's going to take some work on our end to figure out.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is stuff that's being studied and looked at right now. And the learnings that we're going to get from the first steps that we're doing into the product-based search experience, shopping experience, will inform how we're going to serve those unique items in the future.
So I think the message here, if you're a seller of unique items, and I know a lot of you out there are, that not to worry. This is not something that's going to be a requirement for those unique or one-of-a-kind items that you would find in art, antiques, collectibles, until we've actually created a structure that will work for everything. And that's going to it's not going to be an easy project, but for the meantime, don't worry about this. If you sell unique items, you're just use the product identifiers that you have so that buyers can find the items, and don't worry about it.
Right. And if I can add one thing there, is that nobody at eBay wants to lose that eBay DNA of like the unique, the destination for unique and one-of-a-kind items. So don't worry if you're a seller of that. We will have a solve for you.
Right. Lots of other marketplaces don't want to touch that inventory because of the challenge for structuring it. We're going to meet that challenge.
Yes.
We're not getting rid of unique items. I just want to make that clear. Should we move forward?
Sure.
So I've seen these and I love them when I'm looking for products that are, an item that's specifically product pageable and it shows up. It makes it so much easier for me to make a decision.
I totally agree.
As a buyer.
Yes.
As a seller, I want there.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about it. So this is the page that you would see after you click. So we saw before that the search results would change from a listing-based search results page to a product-based search results page.
Yeah.
After you select a product, you would land on a page like this. So in this case, iPhone 10, 256 gigabytes, you get there and you get several top picks that are selected according to best value, depending on what the best value could be to you, right? So some buyers might prefer to pay a little bit more to get faster shipping.
Right.
Some buyers would prefer to wait for a long time and save up on the money a little bit. Maybe you want a refurbished product, maybe you want a pre-owned product, or maybe you like to shop by auction. So there would be top picks for each of those permutations. There's actually many different variations or flavors of this that can be served to any buyer based on what they're looking for. And this is in the process of reiteration, and we're studying like how well this page works right now to try to make it as good as possible for the buyers. And one of the guiding principles is transparency, where we're trying to be very upfront with what drives the picks that we put there on this page and give the buyer a lot of options to change it according to what they're really looking for.
Yeah. Because it depends. Some days I just bought a used electronic device, and that's what I was looking for. I wanted to buy a used one because I didn't want to pay the price for a new one. And it was on a product page, it was an audio recorder, and I found it so fast, as opposed to a year ago when I was looking for one and it was like I had to wade through everything in order to find one.
So one thing that our sellers might wonder when they see a page like this is, where's my item going to end up, right?
Yeah.
So again, we're just grouping things in buckets to make things easier for buyers. So whether we have brand new, free shipping, guaranteed delivery is another one. We can have like pre-owned or auction or whatever. Each of those cards have a link that you can drill down into all offers that are matching that description. So the listings are still there, but they're just grouped together according, like first we saw the grouping per product, now we're seeing grouping per kind of type of offer, if you will.
Right. And ultimately I can still browse everything that's on the site.
Absolutely, yeah, everything's still there.
Okay. Should we move forward?
Sure.
So I'm a seller. I want to take advantage of this.
Oh, actually, I think we had a search demo before.
Oh, you want to do a search demo
Yeah,
first?
sorry.
Okay, let's do that.
Pardon me.
So Matt's going to show us a demo. I can't wait.
Some of this stuff is already live to site, but you'll see more and more as they come along. So, are we ready? Yes? Okay, good. So here's what would happen if we search for Nest thermostat. As you can see in the search bar here, I already have the search placed. So when you click search, this is the old version of eBay. I just want to draw your attention. Like, let's say I'm looking for third generation learning stainless steel programmable thermostat. I would click here and I would go to the listing page. This is today's experience, right? So in the new experience, there's a button here called Group Similar Listings. This is what product-based shopping experience looks like. So in the new world, you would be defaulted to that page after you search for Nest thermostat.
Oh, I see.
And then from there, you can pick whatever product you want. So let's pick the
And each
first
one's
one.
a little different, right?
Each one are different models. In this case, they're not different listings. They're just different models of Nest thermostats. And if you look at the right side of the page here for each card, you have a breakdown of how many offers, how many buying options you have for each. And the price that you see there is what eBay thinks is the best value. But you have to click there to get to that. And this is the product page, the product page that we were talking about, with the top picks at the bottom. So if we're looking for eBay's pick, which is best value, according to us, it could be driven by not just price, but also other things like returns policy or seller reputation, et cetera, what today we call best match. Plays a part in this.
Sure.
And then the other product cards, the other top picks at the bottom, you have one for lowest price, you have one for non-new lowest price, pre-owned, et cetera, and there's a scroll bar here you can use to see.
There's more options.
To see more, yeah. And different searches will yield different. Like if you're searching for something that's really rare or whatever, you might only have one of those, right? Like, but for something like this, there's quite a bit. So
the decision-making process as a buyer is you just made it a lot easier for me to, so I'm looking for refurbished. I know I can go to a refurbished list of these products and find the best deal, or maybe pre-owned if I'm really budget conscious, or if I just want a new one and I want something that's going to have free shipping and free returns, eBay's sorting those out for me, so I know exactly what I'm getting.
Absolutely.
I love it.
Great.
Where do I take my money? Where do I spend it?
I can take checks.
Okay. Is that the end of the demo?
This is the end of the demo.
We can move on from here then. So we talked about product pages, and now we can talk about how I, as a seller, this is all great, but I want to make sure my listings are as optimized as possible. And I'm not kidding, by the way. I sell on eBay, and wherever it's my item is going to appear on a product page, I do whatever I can to make sure that's going to show up, if not on the top, at least in one of those boxes, because a lot of mine are pre-owned. I want to compete, I want to sell, and I need to know, how do I do this? How do I update my listings?
Well, we're going to give you several ways to do that. Obviously, the best way that we can ensure that everybody does what they need to in order to appear in a new product-based search experience is starting, and we announced that in February.
Yes.
Starting with the product lines that are the first phase of deployment of this, we're going to require catalog adoption. So what that means is when you start a new listing, you'll have to pick a product from our catalog to say, yeah, this is the one I'm selling. And this is only for product lines that we've made perfect, right? Like we
There's
mentioned,
iPhone, Nest. What are the other?
iPhone Nest. There's some Dyson products.
Yes, there's a vacuum cleaner.
Roku TV streamers, and the voice activated assistants like Google Home and Alexa and all those things. So you can see all the list in our announcement pages for the last seller update. So we're going to require that the product be picked in the catalog. This is for single offer listings. For multi-SKU, you'll be required to put a GTIN or a UPC code, like one of the product identifiers, per variation. And that will ensure that those variations will also be included in the product results. Because if we know that people tend to put different models of the same thing in a multi-SKU listing, when you look at that from a buy-side product-based search experience, those SKUs will be pulled out of the multi-SKU listing and served in the product, the appropriate product, right? So that's why we want you to identify your products and your variations.
And if I'm listing now a multi-variation item, and it's like different Nest, for example, if I'm selling, can I do that? Can I say like I have different versions of the Nest in one listing? And I'd have to put the UPC, and I'll be able to do that for each one.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. This is starting very soon. But you probably wonder, what about my existing listings?
Yeah, that's
right?
what I want to fix them.
So we have another demo to show you a flavor of this. But before we get there, I just want to explain a little bit the concept of what we're doing. So those of you who are on Seller Hub and have listings in the for the products that we are targeting for the first wave of product-based search shopping experience, you might have started seeing notifications at the top there, all your recommendations for your listings, things that we think you should. You've probably seen messages about pictures and things like that.
Yeah.
So now you should also see stuff about productization or catalog adoption, or like need to associate your listings with products in the catalog.
For those 14 product lines. Yeah.
So all the affected sellers should be that are on Seller Hub, mind you, probably should see those notifications, and that's what I'm about to show you now, what that looks like, and what you can do. So there's two things. We'll see the easiest one first. Are we seeing my screen now? Yes, good. So sorry, let me back up a little bit. So this is your Seller Hub page. So you'll have like a notification like this on the top here.
Oh yeah.
And you just click Start Now, which would take you to like a bulk listing or bulk edit page with all your listings that are affected. These ones here are all the same product, or sensibly all the same product. You have like Apple, iPhones, iPads, etc. So you could select them all and edit, and that would take you to the bulk edit and relist page, where you could each time find a product in the catalog
It's that
that
easy.
matches.
So there's a little find.
Yeah, and then you just go down your listings like that and update all of them with the right catalog.
Will it change things about? Will it change pictures or descriptions or?
No, it's not going to touch your listing. All it does is match with our database.
I get it. Okay.
And it might add a picture from the catalog to your listing, but after your pictures.
Oh, okay.
That might change in the future. It depends on how we want to show it on to buyers. But essentially, that's all you have to do. You go through all those listings, search for the right product in the eBay database, and associate it with your listing. And when you're done, you just submit changes, and off you go.
So it's done.
Yeah, and there might be some situations where we have less certainty in what the product is, so we'll try to make one-to-one recommendations wherever we can. So there's a page in Seller Hub that will have, like you'd be able to select all and just automatically adopt all the products. If we are not able to make a one-to-one match with the product in our database, then you'll have to kind of search like we just saw.
Oh,
right
I see.
here.
Okay, good. Well, that doesn't seem too difficult. I know some of our sellers may have more than just one page of items.
Yes,
so, but
yes.
There'll be some a little bit of a task here, but it's all for the better. It's going to make your listings easier to find.
You'll be included into the new shopping experience, and when we provide buyers with tools to buy more rapidly, then that means more velocity for the sellers as well, right?
Like that velocity. Mm-hmm. So we should move forward here.
Yeah.
So we talked about what's coming in May and June. In February we announced that the requirements are there will be requirements for those 14 product lines. What's our plan beyond to the rest of the year and beyond?
This year we will expand to some categories. We're going to announce all those details in the coming weeks. Essentially, there will be we're going to start broadening the spectrum of product-based shopping experience more and more as we go along. We're going to still stay in the somewhat easy-to-tackle categories at first. So things like, all this to say that things like collectibles and antiques and everything, not near future at all. So if you're a seller of those categories, you can sit tight for now. But we will announce all the details of which categories we're doing and how we're going to enable everybody to kind of help build the catalog to a place where it's accurate and tight, and we'll explain all that, how that works shortly.
So can I, as a seller, be proactive if it's not a requirement, but can I use the same features to go through and update listings that may not be required now, but I just want to be ahead of the game?
Sure. So anything that you can find in the eBay catalog database today, you can associate with your listing, and you probably should, actually, wherever possible. There's a lot missing from the catalog as we speak, and we're going to work to change that. That's why we're kind of taking this phased approach and carefully working our way in. But if you find what you're selling in the catalog, it's highly recommended to add it. And there's even an email address you can send if, for example, you spot something that's not accurate. Or there's, for example, I think we had somebody tell us about missing carriers for iPhones or things like that.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So the address is sdsupport@ebay.com.
sdsupport@ebay.com. If you want to add or correct information.
If you spot something wrong or whatever, or just have feedback, you can send an email there.
You got an email address. That's great. I know that I went through. The only thing I sell that seems to be catalog based is I'm a fragrance aficionado, and I'm selling off my collection over the next year or two. There's a lot of bottles, but I've discovered that a lot of what I have is associated with a catalog item. So I was able to go in and make those changes, and then my items, I noticed I started selling more. Now, I'm not going to say it was a direct result, but it seemed to really help buyers find what I had.
Definitely.
And I made a lot of sales after I did this.
You're benefiting from the structured data that we associate with those products in the catalog, and for anybody who's a buyer on eBay, you probably noticed there's a left-hand navigation when you're searching for things that help you refine and zero into what you're really looking for, and the data in the catalog is what drives those this left-hand navigation. Right. So we know that a lot of buyers use that. If you don't use the catalog or don't fill item specifics in your listings, you're out of that experience.
Yeah. Okay, so that's it. I think it's time for a little reminder here. Let's talk about the little checklist of what we have that you need to do.
Right. So on the right-hand side, you see the list of product lines that are included in the first phase that's rolling out very shortly, which we announced in February. Highly recommended that you check Seller Hub and My eBay to see what you require to update as part of that first phase, and associate your listings with the eBay catalog like we just demonstrated. And Seller Center also has step-by-step guidance that you can follow if you need to.
Okay, so if you're selling either the Amazon Echo Fire Stick or Apple iPhone, iPad, or TV, Dyson, various, I have some of those. The Google Chromecast or Home, the Jawbone Jambox, which is the Bluetooth speaker, any of the Nest thermostats, or the Roku, specifically the Premier Express 1, what is it?
1, 2, 3, and 4.
1, 2, and 3, and 4. Then you'll have to, if you're listing them or you have them listed, you have to make them compliant with the catalog. But look at it this way: we say you have to, but you're the beneficiary in this. It'll be a lot easier for your buyers to find your items. Great.
Very true.
And now it's time for questions, my favorite part. And we have about a half an hour or so for questions, so I think we can get to most everything in here. The first question comes from Chris. Chris says, is it necessary to put UPC and MPN in the listing itself? Well, that's the first question. I'll get to the second one in a minute. So I'm assuming he means in the item description or the title.
Yeah, well, if you mean that, Chris, no, you don't have to put it in the title or description. There's a field specifically for that
Right.
on the listing. Even better than that, if you start your listing with the UPC code or MPN, sometimes the catalog will match you directly with
Exactly.
with the right product, and that would be my preferred way of listing. If whatever I sell has a UPC code, or if I list a book, for example, an ISBN number, or any of those, we call them GTINs in the industry. It's the Global Identification Number, something for, I'm sorry, I forget the acronym. But UPC is one of those numbers, and ISBN is one of those numbers. So if you start your listing with that, and we have it in the eBay catalog, then you'll get it right away, and you can use that to pre-populate your listing. But to your question, Chris, there's a field for MPN or UPC in the listing. If you have it, you should put it there, definitely.
And then Chris also asked, can we put our own UPC or MPN numbers?
Well, not impossible, as counterintuitive as that might seem. Anybody can buy a UPC code and have it associated with that. There's a company, GS1, I think
Yes,
the name
GS1,
is.
yeah.
They issue the UPC codes, at least for North America and Asia, I think. We've seen sometimes people get manufacturer runs of something made, right? And they just buy a GTIN for that product.
For that run of product.
So
right.
in that case, yes, you could use your own, but don't invent your own UPC code or your own MPN, because that's not going to connect with anything.
Right.
It basically defeats the whole purpose of using structured data in the first place.
So use caution. If you're creating a new product and you have a run of it, you're 10,000 units of a special product that you had built that you can sell, yeah, go to GS1 and purchase a UPC code that you can use for those. But if it's a one-off, no, it's not recommended.
No, the result of that would be that whatever you're listing probably won't be visible to buyers at all.
So I think we answered this, but let's answer it again since we have so much time. Roger says, I use a large amount of multi-variation listings and always add the UPC numbers. Will this draw up a single item in a multi-variation or the entire listing?
So in the new product-based shopping experience, like as we saw, we're searching for products, not listings, right? So if your listing is for all the same product, actually, let me rephrase that. If you're using your multi-SKU to list different models of the same product,
right,
then the buyer will see whatever SKU that's matching their search query
right,
in the product-based shopping experience.
Okay.
So in a way, you can still use multi-SKU listings
Right.
because it makes sense for many people, but on the buy side, we might pull that SKU out of your multi-SKU listing to show it as a single SKU to the buyer. Does that make sense?
It does, but if they click on it, then they're in a listing, and they can see all the variations once they're
If
at
they
the
get
listing.
all the way down to the listing, but as we saw before, there's ways to buy from the product page, in
Right.
which case you would only see that SKU.
Okay, that's
But
right.
if the buyer does click away towards the actual listing, then yes, it would see.
So I could think of I just had, I found I'm looking for a blue T-shirt, so I'm starting at that level. Maybe I've also filtered it down so that it's, it's cotton, it's maybe a specific brand, it's a solid color, it's not a graphic tee, and then I'm presented with that page. If there's a seller that has a multi-variation listing with all the SKUs, and one of them is a blue, their listing will show up, and I can purchase the blue
Yeah.
T-shirt. But if I go into the see details and I end up on their listing page, then I'll see all the SKUs.
Yes.
I'll see their listing.
That's exactly how it works. Yeah.
I hope that answered your question.
So just to touch on multi-SKU, because it's a great segue, one of the things that we're looking to do with product-based shopping experience is to formalize a little bit what the multi-SKU offering is to buyers by moving it away from a seller-defined multi-SKU to an eBay-defined multi-SKU based on what the buyer is searching for.
Okay.
So multi-SKU in the new world, in the long run, might not make sense the same way it does today. For now, this is the way that we're incorporating it into the product-based search experience.
So Joe from California asks, what happens when a product placed in the catalog has incorrect information?
Well, that's a great question, Joe. As we mentioned earlier, for the first wave of products that we're putting into the product-based shopping experience, we've already done that work. So we know that all the iPhone entries in the catalog are correct and accurate, and they're all there. Same thing for the Rokus, for the Jawbones, for all the products that we saw in the previous slide. In the future, and there's going to be a lot more details announced about on this very, very shortly, but in the future, we're going to, with always keeping eBay as the custodian of the catalog and the data that goes in it, but there will be a better enhanced opportunity, if you will, for sellers to tell us what's missing or what needs to be changed. Is your product not there? Is the product that you're trying to sell have erroneous information or things like that?
Right.
And eBay will curate and make sure that everything's okay based on those reports.
I know that for the last year there's been a project that some employees were asked to volunteer, and I volunteered, which is where we choose something from a list, and then we run searches on them on our own time. And if we find something that shouldn't be in that product-based experience, like for me, I picked a lot of fragrances, and it's been pretty consistent, but occasionally I found one that shouldn't have been there. It was a different size or a different, instead of being splash, it was spray or whatever. And there's the different variations, and I was able to report them and get that fixed as part of the testing team. And I'm assuming that kind of mechanism will be expanded.
Yeah, obviously we need to scale this to like the whole, if we decide that we let every member on eBay participate in this, like we have to do some good work on our side to be able to handle all that volume. But essentially, yes, that's what we're going to do.
So Nick from Maryland asks, will our listings retain their own static URL that we can use to land traffic from external sites? Or would this redirect to a buy box that another seller might have? So your listing page has its own URL. Is that going to change?
Probably not. And just cautiously saying probably because, like we said earlier, we don't know fully what the solve will be, like all the way down to when we fully productize the marketplace. But for the foreseeable future, and even like when I think further than that, like I don't see the single listing page going away.
Right. Exactly.
So there's always going to be a way. And no, like I guess the concern here is, am I going to send my buyers to a page where there's other sellers' items?
No.
There shouldn't be a world where that's gonna be a reality. But
Good.
you know, we'll know more as this evolves.
Okay. Neoclis from Downey asks, for many auto parts categories, items are kits or sets or bundles of items by vehicle. So, for example, he says, a set of parts for a 2002 Honda Civic. How are these items supposed to be transitioned to the product-based experience?
Great question, and we do have a solve for that. So, in terms of bundles, just to put aside the notion of a manufacturer bundle would be, Nintendo selling a video game with an extra game, an extra controller, whatever, all in the same box. That should have its own UPC code, right? So that's not what we're talking about here, because that would have its own entry in the catalog. When we're talking about user or seller-defined bundles, there's a way in the new listing experience, you'll be able to designate what you're offering as a bundle and then specify what's in the bundle so that the product-based search experience is able to take that into consideration. For example, if the main item in your bundle is the most expensive part in your bundle, for example, in today's world you would list it like this, right? You would say, I'm listing this thing and it's accompanied by all these other things, but the buyer would have to figure out that the price reflects all that and etc. We're going to move that to where the computer is going to take into consideration what's in the bundle, but in order to achieve that, you'll have to designate a hero product in your bundle to associate that with the catalog. Yeah,
is that what we call it?
Well, we could say it like that, right? Like the main,
I like it.
The main part of your bundle,
right.
And maybe even further down the line, we might ask you to define in the catalog everything that's in your bundle, so that the search algorithm can figure out why this listing should be presented along with others.
Yeah.
And for auto parts and everything. This is something that's also going to come a little bit later. It represents a challenge given where the site was already with fitment and all that stuff. So there's a little bit different type of work needed there to make it fit in a product-based search experience, but there's very smart people thinking about that.
So I want to make something clear, that the goal here is not to hide anything from a buyer. The goal here is to present up to a buyer in a way that's much more efficient than the old way, exactly what it is they're looking for when they tell us and give us an indication that they want something specific. You'll still be able to browse categories, you'll still be able to do a keyword search and search for items, and if it's not an item that is easily cataloged or doesn't currently have a catalog GTIN, it's not going to be affected by this. So for example, there's a question coming up, and I'll ask it now, from Rita, and she says, antiques and vintage, how can a computer tell the difference between a beautiful item from France or Italy with history, etc., that's worth far more than a cheap knockoff? So the point here is that those categories, as we reiterated in the beginning, are not touched by this. This would be a huge challenge. I think it's one we're going to try to accomplish, but in the very near term and into the future, this is just something that if you're a seller in those categories, you need not worry about.
No, and there will be a solve for it.
Yes. Stephen Medford from Hawthorne asks, how will listings be prioritized and distinguished when a potential buyer is searching for an item? What are the priorities that eBay will be using to pick which listing to put up front as a default or top level?
Very good question. So the overarching principle is similar to that of Best Match, but we're trying to get a little bit smarter than Best Match. And in a product-based search experience or shopping experience, once you've defined which product that you want to buy, it gets much easier to condense the page into what we think is the best value. So best value might be different from buyer to buyer, and we're hoping that the algorithm can learn a little bit about our buyers that way, so that over time we get even smarter at presenting the right products to the right buyers, or rather the right buying offer, right, to the right buyer. That may be different from buyer to buyer, like we mentioned earlier. If somebody cares more about fast shipping over cheap shipping, or free shipping,
right,
or pre-owned or whatnot, this will different. So our challenge there, and we're very good at those things now, is going to be to build a page that makes it easy for buyers to kind of tell us exactly what they're looking for, so that we can present the right items. So I know I'm kind of answering the question a bit vaguely, because this, like Best Match, is very, very complicated, but the short story is best value will be presented to the buyer.
Right. And grouped depending on what the attributes that the buyer may be looking for. And I can give you an example. So I may want a certain item, but I'm not looking for the best value. I'm looking for the fastest shipping, and that may cost a little bit more. So value isn't as big a proposition for me as, look, I'm willing to pay X% more or more just to get the item fast. I don't want to wait for 2 weeks. I already do this right now with certain items where I'll look to see where is it coming from. And if it's coming from a distance far away and it's going to take longer to get here, more often than not, that very good value for that, let's say, electronic item, no, I want to see items nearest to me, and I'll pay more because I just want to get it this week. I don't want to wait a month.
And just to clarify,
so that's my value.
Yeah, exactly. That's a very good point. Value doesn't necessarily mean price.
Right.
It could be different for different people. And let's think about like seller terms and return policies, and even payment policies, or shipping experience, etc. Like all those things build into what the value proposition is for the buyer.
Jerry from New York says most iPhones from major carriers are in the catalog, but what about smaller regional carriers like iWireless? I never heard of these ones. Vario Wireless, Consumer Cellular. I heard Consumer Cellular is the ones that they market towards the elderly, you know, the senior citizens like me. Big phones with big type. Yes, hello. Chat Mobility and others. I don't see any of those in the catalog. They are sold locked by those carriers, and I also on occasion get foreign iPhones, usually from Japan. How will those be listed? They can't be sold as unlocked, and they're not in the catalog. What's the solve for Jerry?
Well, Jerry should write an email to sdsupport@ebay.com. And be as clear as possible in your email, Jerry, with like you were in your question here. I would even go one step further to kind of list in a grid pattern, like exactly what's missing from the catalog, like this iPhone is not with this carrier, etc. Or do we need to add, we might not need to add this carrier locks to every single iPhone that ever existed. Right. I doubt that you want to sell a iPhone 1 lock to one of those carriers. But the team will add it. If it's missing, we'll just add it.
Does Jerry have to supply also some sort of identifier besides just the phone?
Yeah, if you can use the UPC code from the phone, that might be easier. The thing that's funny about Apple is that they don't distinguish. It's the same UPC code if your phone is locked to any carrier.
Oh, that's
and even I think the only instance where they assign a new UPC code is if the phone is refurbished. So that's just to illustrate one of the challenges we have on the structured data side, where every time you put something in a catalog, the UPC code might not be a one-to-one match to the products in our catalog, which are assigned a unique eBay product ID number, which we call EPID. So that's why sometimes when you put a UPC code, you might get a few hits from the catalog. They're not all the same.
Right. Okay. Mark from California asked a question that I know we've answered, but I'm going to continue to repeat these questions just to nail this, because I think there's a lot of unnecessary angst among sellers of secondhand, pre-owned, non-UPC or skewable merchandise that suddenly they're not going to be in the game, and that's not true. Mark asked, I deal in secondhand merchandise. Most of the time there's no model or UPC number. I rely on keywords to be found. Will this still be effective? And the answer is...
Yes.
Of course.
Yes.
Let me make it clear. We are not looking to hide or block merchandise from eBay. We're looking for merchandise that can be easily product-based in our structured data so that we can serve up to buyers.
Yes.
And if you have something that suits that, it will behoove you to make sure that you're utilizing the catalog entry so that you can appear there. But if there's no UPC, there's no identifier, there's nothing, like for example, pre-owned clothing. I sell a lot of pre-owned men's apparel. That's just a really challenging area. In most cases, there's nothing to use in the way of a single identifier. So keywords and item specifics, if you're talking about fashion or apparel, will be they're important now and they'll continue. Size, brand, color, material, all of these things will be the identifiers, if you will, that people can utilize along with keywords to limit their search to exactly what they're looking for. I'm not interested in a small shirt. It's been 20 years, well, okay, let's be honest. It's been 50 years since I've fit into a small size shirt. I'm only interested in the size that fits me. I'm always going to use that identifier, that on the side, the filter.
When you think about it, what you just described could be used to build a product card, because the more attributes you add to an item, the narrower it gets, right? So if something is like polyester, size medium, blue, blah, 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 at one point, even with just those attributes, you're like, it's a shirt. You know it's a shirt, right? Even if there's no brand. So that's what the future might look like for those type of categories. And you can apply that to antiques or whatever. Like it doesn't matter. Like it's made of wood, it's got, 4 legs with metal ornaments, whatever, it's a table. Like there's the more you add attributes, the more you zero in into what the product actually is, and you can connect that to a product card. So that might be one way we can productize non-productizable items.
Right, it's very true. So Dave asks, suppose a shopper wants to buy a Mac laptop for under $500. They don't really care which particular model or product, but they just want to get one in good condition. How can they browse individual listings for multiple products at the same time to find their choice? And he asked the question, or will this no longer be possible? And let me address that, or will this no longer be possible? We are not hiding merchandise. That buyer will still be able to find that laptop, and Matt will tell you how.
Yes. So let's imagine you search just for the words Apple laptop, right? That's a very broad query. We don't have a model. We don't have anything else to go off of. So the search will, the product-based search will return a list of products that match the query. And each of those product cards will have like an idea of what's the best value for that. And the more you go into the older models, you'll get to the ones that no longer have any new ones on eBay. So that 500 laptop might show up in that list. If it doesn't, you just click one further click away into the product page, and where you're going to be able to see all the offerings for those. So yes, it still be there. It might be a click further away or not. And again, the flavor of that browsing experience might change depending on what you're looking for. If there's a lot of new things that are offered for that search query, then that might be showing up at the top. But if we want to keep showing you the spectrum of value that is on eBay, certainly not hide items like Griff says, for sure.
So Dave asked, how will I access the catalog during the listing process? And again, this is the misconception that this is somehow a browsable catalog with pages that they can go, there it is. And that's not what this is. I always regret that I think that we chose the word catalog, which I think made sense at the time, but it is confusing.
It's an industry term.
Yeah.
See it as a database. It's really what it is.
Database, right.
The way you access it, and this is going to be built into the listing process, you're going to start seeing it within the next couple of months. For those product lines that we've shown, the way the listing experience will start is with a little bit like today. When you search for it, you're served with a set of search results that are pulled from the catalog for you to pick from. So that's exactly what it's going to look like when you actually see it already today for a lot of productized categories.
Let's see, here is a question from Anne, and this is a good one because this is about photos. She asked, can we have our own photos for pre-owned products? And I know the best practice that we recommend now is even if you're listing against the catalog, if the item is used or pre-owned, we want you to provide a photograph.
Absolutely, and that's not going away.
That's not going to go away.
No. One thing to kind of like, the right way to imagine this, the way we're going to structure offers on eBay, or listings, if you will, once you've matched your listing with the product in the catalog, you're still going to have some offer level details to provide. For example, what's your price? For example, if it's pre-owned, extra photos, what's the condition? Describe the condition. Is it a lot? Is it a bundle? Is it modified? If you sell your laptop but you jacked up the RAM on it, it's not going to be the same offer as someone that's right. Selling one off the shelf. So we want to give you ways to describe that, and all of this in a structured way, so that when we start showing product search results to buyers, we can take that into consideration. So yes, photos, single item photos will always be welcome, but the difference is there will also be the catalog pictures showing in your listing.
Ashley asks, will I be able to go in and add variations to listings I have already previously listed and be able to add them to the catalog? So I have an existing listing and it has, I want to add variations. Will I be able to add the UPC code for those so that they are listed against the catalog?
So just to be clear, like today you can't make a single SKU listing into a multi-SKU, right? You have to
redo
it. And then redo it. So that's not going to be different. If you're asking about updating your multi-SKU listing with UPC codes and everything, yes, that's actually going to be a requirement as we move forward in the deployment of product-based search experience or shopping experience.
Sarah asked a question. I know the answer.
Oh, cool.
Because I experimented. I love to test. Sarah says, on the product page, how often does eBay refresh their top picks? Is it similar to a buy box? Well, yes and no. I think it's similar in the extent that it's a product page, but how often do we refresh it? So I had a bottle of cologne, and there was a catalog entry. So I listed it against the catalog, and it didn't appear. It was like, it was see more items. And then I realized that I was priced over the one that was showing up. So I went in and I changed my price to just a few cents lower. And when I refreshed that search page, it immediately showed up.
Yep.
So it is dynamically updated. You have to refresh the page.
Every time a buyer searches or browses, at the time the page loads is at that time that the computation is happening, right? So, like you said, refresh. You might see another item right away. If something sells out while you're looking at it, you refresh and it's going to be replaced.
Absolutely. We have one more question before I guess, and this could be the end. Marcus from Ontario, Canada asks, will listings from international sites be included in the groupings in the catalog?
Very good question. So
yeah, that's a good one.
As a first step, there's a long-term solve for this, but we don't have that in place just yet. So for now, you're in Canada, Marcus. The listings that are productized, if you're listed on ebay.ca, will show in a product-based search experience, shopping experience on ebay.ca, but not necessarily on ebay.com. However, if you list on ebay.com from your Canadian account, then it will show on ebay.com.
Because I know right now in the old version, I can say show me worldwide. Yes. And that sometimes will increase the number of listings.
So with this new, at least for the first step, if the default is to product-based shopping experience, then there won't be any international items. But that's not going to stay like that for long. Obviously, we need to solve for that. TBD, it's coming up.
We did get another question in. Yay, thanks, Carson. When you tell them what we're finished, suddenly, oh, wait, I got a question. Carson from Claremont says, will promotions still help listings be more visible?
Are we talking about promoted listings?
Promoted
here?
listings and promotions. Let's talk about both.
Yeah, so the flavor of that will change probably. We might start talking about promoted products instead of promoted listings. Don't really have any depth into what that means, but those are the conversations I'm hearing right now. In terms of promotions manager, SME and seller, we call them seller-funded discounts.
Sure, yeah.
That will not go away, but they're working through what that means, or rather how we present that to buyers. Right. In a product-based search experience. In
the long term.
Yes.
Because right now, as you know, Promotion Manager is really effective on the listing page. We want to reiterate that the listing page itself is not going away. And as far as promoted listings, those placements are still valuable. So there'll still be categories to browse. There'll still be placement options. I hear that perhaps in different high-profile pages, we're going to expand this feature. So promotions, both for promoted listings and Promotions Manager promotions, will still be an important part of your toolkit for marketing and your listings on eBay, and I strongly recommend that you continue using them.
Yeah, these are all things that help us provide a retail standard experience to buyers, so obviously we can't take that away.
So another question came in, and we have the time, so I'll ask it. This is Jane, and again, this is the confusion. Jane's question, I think, highlights the confusion here. Where can we go to view products associated with each phase of the product-based system? Will there be a centralized database?
Okay, so is this talking more about the deployment and which?
I'm going to assume so, yes.
Yeah. So we will announce the next steps as we get there, and we always try to give enough heads up to everyone before, like we're never going to tell you, okay, it's changing next week, like you got to get on it. So for the February announcement, we announced that we're going to start enforcing in May. Right. So that was like 2 months, 3 months buffer. We'll continue employing the same approach. So next seller update will be the next set of categories of where we're going with that, and so on and so forth. Right,
but to reiterate, the eBay catalog is not a browsable database. It depends on when you list an item, you provide us with a GTIN, a UPC, ISBN, some code number, that we can then look for the item in the catalog and serve it up to you and say, is this the item that you're listing? And hopefully in most cases it will be, and if it's not, you'll be able to either make a correction or send it, depending on the mechanism that's put in place. But you can't go and browse this as though it was a database or an Excel spreadsheet or catalog.
Very true.
And I think Jane's question was the last. So without any further ado, I think we can sign off safely, Matt.
Perfect.
I want to thank everyone, including our viewers and sellers who have stopped by and viewed our webinar. I hope this was helpful. This is a real groundbreaking change here at eBay, and it will yield great results. Not to worry, we'll be here with you through the entire process to help you through it. You can always ask questions. My email address is out there, so I'll continue to give it. It's griff@ebay.com. If you have a question specifically about product-based shopping, feel free to email it to me. If you get an auto response, please read the entire thing. I know it's long, but it has a lot of information in it. And until our next webinar, on behalf of the entire selling team, and Matt, thanks again for joining us today.
Happy to be here.
And we'll see you next time. You can always view our webinars once they're recorded at ebay.com/webinars. I'm Griff, and until next time, thank you and happy selling on eBay. See you later.